What's up, guys? Steven Osentoski here of MGoFish, and welcome to another episode of Recruit Review. If you missed it last week, this is a new series I'm doing where I go over stats, recruitment, scouting, film, and projection for each of Michigan football's 2018 recruiting class. Last week I covered wide receiver Ronnie Bell. I'll put a link in the description for that if you missed it last week. Let's get this one started, guys. Today we're covering 6'2" defensive back German Green. Let's start with recruitment. As I mentioned, he's a defensive back. He's from DeSoto High School in Texas. German Green has a twin brother, Jeeman Green. They both committed to Michigan on April 20th, 2017. German missed his junior year with a torn ACL. So, being his junior year, he missed a critical part of his recruitment. That's usually when you see guys make a big jump in ranking. He was still working to get back to 100% in the spring of 2017. Despite that, he still hit the camp circuit pretty hard, and he did relatively well. 247's EJ Holland put both Jeeman and German in the top 20 recruits he saw in the spring. So obviously German performed well enough to make a top list, which is encouraging. At the Dallas opening regional, German had a pretty good camp. TMI's Josh Newkirk really praised his ball skills at that event, and Holland of 247 again put him in his top 10 of underrated recruits at that camp. He was also mentioned in the Under Armour Dallas event as a part of a strong defensive back group. He was heralded for winning some critical one-on-one battles in coverage. Greg Powers of Scout heralded German Green's attacking style and praised a tremendous upside at the safety position. So his aggressiveness matched with his ball skills really makes him an intriguing prospect under Don Brown in Michigan's attack style offense, so that's good to hear. Add in a 6'2", 180-pound frame, you got a lot to work with. He had offers from Colorado, Fresno State, Houston, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Tennessee. He had interest from Baylor, Oregon, Stanford, and Texas, but he did not receive offers from those programs. Okay, let's move on to scouting. From Rivals, he is a 3-star, no national ranking or positional ranking. ESPN, he's also a 3-star, no national ranking. He's listed as the 105th overall safety and the 181st overall recruit from Texas. 247 is the most bullish on his abilities. He is the 973rd overall prospect. He's the 80th ranked safety and 115th in Texas. His 247 composite ranking is a 3-star at about 1,200 nationally, about 100 at the safety position, and 176th overall in Texas. All services have him at about 6'2" and around 170 to 180 pounds. Obviously that's good size, but you want to add a little bit more weight at 6'2", being a safety. At the opening event in Dallas, he posted a 4.95 in the 40, a 4.53 shuttle time, and a 30-inch vertical. So he was definitely still recovering at the time of this event, so you would expect those numbers to bump up a little bit as he got progressively more healthy. ESPN has a list of stats at a 4.76 for the 40, a 4.46 for the shuttle, and a 35-inch vertical. If I were to have a guess, I would put him kind of in the middle of those two rankings. Obviously, testing, while not 100%, is going to be lower, and some unverified testing times aren't going to be completely accurate, so I think he's somewhere in the middle of that, so around 4.8, 40, 4.5 shuttle, and maybe a 33-inch vertical. So not bad testing numbers, but he doesn't jump out athletically. Okay, moving on to stats. As I mentioned before, he's at DeSoto High School in Texas. DeSoto High School is in the second division of Texas's 6A classification, which is the largest classification in the state. In 2016, DeSoto High School won the state championship. In 2017, they lost in the second round of the playoffs with a 10-2 overall record. His 2017 stats, only stats I could find, couldn't find 2016 or any earlier. 26 solo tackles, 42 total tackles, 1 pick, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. As a safety / corner, he's often in coverage. Oftentimes, if you're better, teams will avoid you, so there could be a little bit of that. I'd like to see his stats a little higher, but again, it's hard to tell exactly where he was at, if he was still coming back from injury, but again, a defensive back, you're not always going to see the stats there, especially if you're on a good team, because your defensive line, your linebackers will do a good job. So hard to say. Let's move into film study. I'll do the same as I did last week, where I'm going to put the film on this screen over here. I'll play it while I'm talking about it. So this top 5, these are 5 plays that I think both best display his skill set and plays that impress me the most. So let's get going. All right, number 5. German is covering what looks like a wheel / fade route here. He displays really good technique here. You see the hand on the defender's leg, head looking back for the ball, swats it away. He gives the defender very little room to make the catch, forces him to the sideline, and gets a hand on the ball. So a really good pass breakup, shows good technique there. Moving on to number 4, I like the patience that German displays here. You see him at about linebacker depth, and he's just kind of waiting there. He's trying to see what the running back is doing. I think he should have initiated the contact with the lead blocker here a little earlier, but regardless, he still did a good job of getting the outside shoulder free, and he does a good job preventing the runner from getting outside of him and eventually making the tackle. Okay, number 3. I really like this play. He instantly reads the quarterback's eyes and bolts for the sideline for the fade. He locates the receiver, checks back at the QB mid-run, and helps break up the pass. This shows really great awareness and good burst to make the play at the time the corner needed help. Okay, play number 2. 2 things really stand out to me here. Number 1, his ability to recognize the route, time up the pass breakup with a burst of speed. I'll do a replay here. And number 2, more importantly here, is his ability to avoid the wide receiver here, running kind of this little pick route you see. He has a very slight bend in his approach to the slant that the wide receiver he's covering is going on. It's something he will always encounter at Michigan. This is something you see in the college game all the time, these fancy little pick routes to make the defender's job really tough on these quick slant routes. Really impressed with that play, number 2 there. And then finally, number 1, this shows his tackling ability a little bit here. You see him coming down. At this point, the runner can continue to the outside, or he can cut up into German Green's lane. German could shoot upfield here, but it could allow the possibility for the runner to bounce outside. Instead, he breaks down, waits for the running back to make his decision, commit to either running up the hole that he's covering or bounce to the outside, and then he stands the dude up in the hole. I think it's only like a 1 or 2 yard gain. He does a good job of not overcommitting, understanding that the running back has to make a decision in order to get any yards, and then he closes that gap between himself and the running back very quickly and effectively. So from this top 5 alone, I think we can tell that he's a pretty knowledgeable player. He's a physical cover guy, decent technique, times up plays really well, not great athleticism. I think he's a decent hitter. He's not a thumper, but he carries out his reads really well, doesn't overcommit, and is a patient tackler. He allows plays to develop, and he fills his gap. Okay, projection. I think German could definitely use a redshirt year to bulk up. As I mentioned, he could put on probably a good 20 pounds of muscle and still keep the speed, if not build upon that speed with a proper strength and conditioning program. Having that redshirt to fill out, there's also plenty of other options at that position already. And then you also have a lot, I think 4 other defensive backs in the 2018 class to compete with as well. Given he did have that injury, he might have lost a little bit of time in development, so that only adds to the need for a redshirt year to really build up that strength again, develop a little bit more before he's ready to see the field. You know, after a redshirt year, I think in 2019, you'll see him all over the place on special teams, get him more experience, speed him up to the game, get him to feel more comfortable. 2020 onward, I think you can see him start to crack the rotation a little bit. You know, I think he'll still be in the 2 deep. I don't think he'll be starting, but I think he's a good candidate for a nickel corner. I like his skill set, and by then he'll be more acclimated to the system, to the Don Brown safety mold. I think he has a really good chance of being a contributor. I think he tops out at contributor. I don't see the high-end athleticism to prove me otherwise, but I hope he does prove me otherwise. Just because I don't see that athleticism there doesn't mean he can still be a good safety prospect. Being a smart safety is better than being a highly athletic, not so smart safety, if that makes sense. So I like him as a prospect. I just think he has a long way to go, and I think Michigan also just has a really stacked 2018 class of guys who can possibly move ahead of him. But you know, I think he'll still contribute. I think he can be a solid part of the defensive backs for 2020 onward. That's all I got for this week, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think of this episode and last week's episode. Make sure to follow me at Twitter at Osentoski, and make sure to follow Garrett Fishaw at MGoFish to never miss an episode. If you haven't already, press that subscribe button. It really helps grow the channel, and I definitely appreciate that. And yeah, guys, thanks for watching, and as always, go blue.